Yes.
That's a yes. Good evening, everyone. This is the December 17th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Ossining Planning Board. We'll take attendance, starting with our town attorney.
Christy O'Donnell. Valerie Menastra, signing consultant for the planning board.
Yes, you're also a consulting engineer of the planning board.
Sandy and Ellie, secretary.
Don Sharp, planning board member.
Jim Cenas, planning board member.
Bill Boyd, planning board member.
David O'Neill, planning board member.
Carolyn Stevens, planning board chair. The first item on our agenda this evening is St. Augustine's Cemetery, 75 Fox Avenue, a new cemetery chapel building site plan.
May I?
Yes, you may.
I'm John Fry with Next Creative in Kisco, New York. Here for Jacqueline Tyler, who is away for the holidays. I think there are two primary lanes of activity in the past month and a half.
Mhm.
One was on the architectural side, working with the state of New York regarding interpretation and variance for the single toilet, which we secured. And then the other primary activity related to the soils investigations. And Alan Pilch is here to speak in more detail about that. And unless there's anything else that I should address, we'll turn it over to Alan to talk about the soils investigation, if that's okay.
Good evening. So we did, in accordance with health department regulations, we did deep hole testing, which a couple of you observed, came out there. I know that Carolyn, you were out there.
Mhm.
Yes, you were out there too. And then Dan came out there also, to see what the soils are like. And we also did percolation with this. The deep hole testing was done on November 18th. And the percolation testing was done on, what's the date? November 25th, with the pre-soak done on the 24th. What we found on this, the soils, and it was also witnessed, as you know, by Wayne Schneider of the health department. What we saw were about 6 inches of topsoil, and generally from the 6 inches to, let's say, around 77 to 80 inches. He defined it as medium sandy loam with gravel and cobbles. That's the term he used. And that's what we observed out there. There was no groundwater, there was no rock. So that's what we found. He also said possible fit. That's the term he used. But actually, it's very clean material that was there. Having done a lot of deep hole testing, I've seen stuff that will shock you, but this stuff was actually quite clean. So that's what we did. And that's perfectly adequate for a septic system. Following that, we did the percolation testing. I did the percolation testing here. And actually three holes were done, 2 in the primary and 1 in the 100% expansion area. It was actually shown in the last plan, the locations of them. And that's in accordance with the plan regulations to do that. And what we found were percolation rates that, well, I'll tell you the numbers. Percol number 1 was 39 minutes per inch and stabilized at that. Percol number 2 was 41 minutes per inch. And percol number 3 was 36 minutes per inch. The procedure is to dig a hole which is 30 inches, about, let's say 10 to 12 inches in diameter, 30 inches deep. You fill it with 6 inches of water and you observe to see how long it takes to drop to 5 inches. Procedurally, that's what you do. And that's what we found. And that's perfectly adequate, the numbers. So it was modeled 31 to 45 minutes per inch because they have little, they have, we'll call it ranges, how they do it. And what done afterwards, so with that, you're able to calculate based on the flow, how much absorption area you need. And the final plan here takes into account the results of the percolation testing. And as I'll say on the plan, what's here is that based on the flows that we're anticipating from 32 pews and, you know, maximum occupancy of 42 people. We end up with a flow of 126 gallons per day, which is 3 gallons per seat, which is about 96. You throw in the office and the additional people. That's what we got. And it works out to the required lineal feet of fields we require to be 157.5. I'm actually showing a plan using 190 lineal feet of quick 5 equalizer chambers, which are sort of a more modern design than using just 4-inch PVC and 2-foot wide gravel trench. I'm showing 190 lineal feet here, which is in 5 rows of these chambers, generally 40 to 35 feet in length, and then the 100% expansion area. And, you know, and I'm actually ready to submit this to the health department. It's what it is right now. Well, that was the results of the testing. And it's, you know, I'll just say they're perfectly adequate.
Dan, you had some comment you wanted to make as well. So-
Sure. So actually, we went out there for the depots, took it as an opportunity to see, look back at the pond that was supposed to be built in 1985. The overgrowth was pretty heavy, so you really couldn't even get a chance to look at it. So since we're sort of, you know, a new site plan approval, I suppose, on top of that previous one for the filling that went on, it would seem prudent to at least have an inspection conducted of that stormwater practice, in that we're not requiring any stormwater practices with the new building, but it would seem appropriate, you know, if that, you know, that we just need to be sure that that existing system is not clogged or completely overgrown. So I think it would be prudent to include that in approving resolution. And, you know, we could leave them looking for a CO, I suppose. But I think an inspection would be in order.
So basically, an inspection of the prior water basin.
Yeah, I mean, I had to guess, it looks like nobody's been back there in 40 years, so probably time to take a peek.
You know, it makes sense to have a path that you can get down.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a reasonable thing.
So sometime before the CFO is.
I'll just say, when we looked at the mapping, and John heard, when we showed us the mapping of the basin, it actually picks up runoff from the street. There are basins in the street that may run off into that detention basin. You know, I mean, so obviously some of the cemetery property goes in there too, but I'm just saying it definitely included street runoff, and I think that was part of the purpose of it. I'll just point out too, that the plan that we did submit does show 3 Cultec chambers coming off the roof. And the way I model it, as usual, is 1 inch an hour. It's a very, very conservative rate, which based on certainly the testing that was done, it's actually located here, but based on the testing here, I have every reason to believe. I'll just say one other thing. When we done the 4 depot tests there, they were virtually all identical.
Right.
They really were. The soils were very uniform across them. So I think that we are showing like 3 Cultec 100 chambers, which are shallow chambers, but they're only 12.5 inches tall. But the idea here is just to control some of the runoff that comes off of there. And as I say, I modeled it at 1 inch an hour based on what we saw here. Basically, it was dropping 1 inch in, you know, 40 minutes. So it's very conservatively done.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open the public hearing. If there's anyone who wants to comment on St. Augustine Cemetery. Gentlemen, have any comments you want to make? Yes.
Hi, I'm Russell Watsky. I live at 21 Hawks Avenue.
Okay.
I share a property line with the cemetery and downstream with the cemetery. So the runoff that Dan is referring to affects me in a very real way. And I'm not here to oppose the project. I think it's been thought through very carefully. And I have no objection personally to what they're planning to do. I just see this as an opportunity to follow through on some of the commitments and promises that were made 37 years ago. I don't want to rehash all of that stuff. It was a horrible thing to go through, but we do have a chance now to follow up on the detention basin issue, make sure that gets maintained properly. And also, perhaps I'm misremembering the commitments that were made about monitoring wells. My understanding is that the cemetery had an obligation to establish monitoring wells to take periodic samples of what's happening below grade with regard to any runoff, any seepage, any material that's coming out of the fill material that was brought in. I thought there were going to be wells established and sampled periodically to make sure that everything is okay. And I don't think that ever happened. Maybe I misunderstood.
I hear something, all right? Wanna come? What?
Okay. So those are the two things that I'm concerned about, is the maintenance of the detention basin.
Right.
And possible monitoring of any hazardous material that's coming out of the fill that was brought in. And so I'm hoping this is some leverage to make those things happen. Thank you very much.
Lauren, have we had an opportunity to go back and look at and review the names that were put in
No,
place?
I don't have any information on any agreements to you.
There was, I mean, there are, some testing results in the file. Offhand, I don't recall if it was soil testing or well monitoring,
Okay,
but I guess the issue is, for what period of time was the
Whether-
well monitoring supposed to continue?
right. Do we have
So
any
we'll have
records
to, I
that
guess, look
indicate?
into that.
We have the records I sent them to Dan.
Okay,
and
and
They
did
were
they
a
indicate?
long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some discussion of monitoring, but off the top of my head, I don't. But
Go back and
I think we should, obviously take a look
Yeah,
and
so
see.
can you go back and take a look at that? Okay,
And I don't know, you know that were there any commitments made with DEC? Were they involved with this? Because in the records you sent me, I didn't see any DEC correspondence, but. No. Okay.
okay.
All right, so,
If you take a look at the
all right,
records.
no,
that we
it looked
have-
like, it looked like the testing was being driven by the town and not, outside regulatory agency.
Okay,
But we can report back to you.
We could add, a condition to any resolution just stating that the applicant has to comply with any continuing maintenance and monitoring obligations set forth in prior approvals.
okay.
If the board would be comfortable with that. Are you okay with that?
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah, my name's Hank Kelly, Henry Kelly. I live on Mancuso Drive, and I was there when the bill was put in, and I appreciate your diligence taking a look at it. I saw some guys down there taking a look, see. One of the things that we were concerned about back then was this was one of the few sites that didn't have a liner put into it. There's no liner into this. There was actually a topographical, unusual setup over there, and they just filled it up, whatever they brought in. And hydrogen sulfide gas for like 2 years was coming through. People were sick at night from it. It was a pretty rough deal. That's why you're hearing some of the things you are, because at the time it was pretty horrific, especially at that point, Mancuso Drive wasn't even paved. It was still a dirt road, okay? And then this happened, and we did go through a significant, the neighbors, many have moved away, some have passed away, but the ones that are still here remember it very clearly. That's why you're hearing this. So, if you could go back and just make sure that things are good, and the detention pond is has been overgrown and there's a mess. There haven't been any smells coming out of the place for a long time. probably 20, 25 years, I would say.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody's got any objection to what is proposed there,
Right.
okay? And I guess the distance from the hookup in the street makes it untenable to really put anything other than a septic. So, just trying to make sure that the
So
neighborhood's
basically,
protected.
you want the same thing as your neighbor, which is that they live up to the promises under the.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
was required after the last night.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting, just personal history. I got involved in the planning board myself as a result of it. So I know where you're at in the process and when you have to deal with things, and I just appreciate the diligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Anybody online, Margaret?
No, Carolyn, no hands up online.
Okay, thank you.
Margaret? See a little hand on, Maria.
But
That's just-
she has
that's your
herself
mouth.
on mute. Her hand.
That's your mouth.
Oh, that's my mouth.
I don't see a hand up.
I had my hand up on her.
Sandy has.
Sorry about that. On my system.
All right, so we're good. Okay. All right, so, Valerie.
Yeah, so we go through some of the conditions.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to close the public hearing?
Yeah. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, have you both stated? On the rules to close the public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I vote yes as well. So the public hearing is closed. Now, we can discuss a possible resolution and draft resolution and the, any conditions that we want to.
There are two separate resolutions that Valerie prepared, one for planning board site plan and one for ARB.
Okay, so why don't we just,
The plan.
yeah,
Let's do the site
I
plan.
was gonna say, why don't we start with the site plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so, just to go to page 3 is when we really start focusing on the conditions. A couple of things. One of the conditions I put in there was a resubmission of all documents as one submittal package, because what I noticed is that the applicant was just submitting sometimes just the like the plans that were revised and not necessarily some of the whole package again. So
Okay.
we're recommending to have everything repackaged and submitted. Although I did look back at the documents and I do believe I have everything listed as what was submitted throughout the process, but it would be good to have one thing as one package. The other condition is that the planning board's approval is conditioned upon them receiving all approvals required by other governmental approving agencies without material deviation from the approved plans. And that clearly would include the Department of Health. The applicant has to address the full satisfaction of town engineer, town building inspector, and all outstanding septic and stormwater issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the planning board. So that should cover those.
All of this.
Right.
Okay.
And then, so those are the three, like I guess I'm saying more or less, specific conditions to this. Now, in terms of landscaping, I think we have our normal landscaping, and the applicant's not really proposing to do much in terms of landscaping
No.
anyhow.
Right.
Then prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, so we have our typical language, which includes, that the building inspector will inform this board and you can go out and take a look. And that, you can do a field inspection and then anything that needs to be modified will be modified. But this is also where we can add Dan's, condition dealing with the
Inspection of the-
right,
it's-
right of the
And
structure.
actually, I mean, what Christie suggested about just going back to making sure all the conditions of the prior approval are still being adhered
Right.
to. We could actually cover that, so if you,
Right.
either way, it's covered.
Okay.
I just want to,
Yeah.
one of the points of clarification, in your memo is, I mean, presumably you're gonna be the one that's determining whether maintenance is required and what that maintenance would be. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yeah,
Is the
no.
board okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna take an inspection to see what it looks like down there and if anything needs to be done.
Okay,
So
so
what,
Dan will be in charge of monitoring that portion of the process.
so I'll add in about the applicant needs to comply with everything prior to the BO from the original approvals. And then I'm also gonna add in Dan's requirement that he would do an inspection and any changes that need to be modified for that stormwater basin would be done at that point.
And should there be some sort of correlating condition or acknowledge, or that if there has to be access to the basin, which you
Right.
indicated there wasn't, so some sort of, clearing out of that area so that it's accessible
Mhm,
going
yeah.
forward
At least the path.
and ongoing maintenance of that area.
Right.
So is that, will you be establishing some kind of maintenance schedule? Or that would be in the original?
Well, I mean, the original, the stormwater protocols we have today have evolved quite a bit from
Right.
what was in place back then.
Right.
So I guess one way to address it is to say that maintenance practices will be pursuant to the New York State
Okay.
standards or the current New York State stormwater standards.
Right,
That might be the way to,
right, so I
and
guess,
and then that makes it dynamic because if the
Right, if it
maintenance
changes.
requirements of the stormwater practice evolves over time, then so will their requirements.
so, but how does that exactly happen? Is that, it would be on their end that they would, if it, like, I'm just making this up, say it's like a yearly inspection, would they be required
I
to?
mean, as a practical matter, some municipalities have somebody do it periodically or have an applicant have their consultant go in periodically, do an inspection and report back.
Mhm.
When we have to look at the original documents to see what was required back then, in terms of.
Well,
who's
I guess,
supposed to do the inspection.
I mean, the nuance of this is that you have a stormwater practice that was
Right.
constructed, roughly 40
40
years
years
ago.
ago.
Right, so none of this stuff was in place, so we're not saying that they would have to make it bigger or change
Right.
it. But like on that type of basin, if there's a recommended maintenance
Ma-
protocol.
Right.
In the current stormwater design manual, that they would adhere to those requirements. Which isn't a lot, it's really somebody's gonna, if there's a buildup of silt or trees fall down or, then it's. One of the things we'll look at, if there's some type of control structure with an outlet pipe.
Okay.
Over time, branches and things may have blocked it, or there may be sediment accumulation, so until we look at it, but. I think if anything needs to be done with the basin, it should be obvious,
So
which
it's,
may actually involve probably cutting. I don't know if you want to
No.
hear this, it may involve cutting some trees.
Right. my issues though is that, from personal experience, there's things required and they don't happen unless someone, like a neighbor or somebody complains about it. And this obviously hasn't been maintained in 40 years, so I'm just wondering how it can get fixed now. But how does it,
I mean,
what prevents it from being another 40 years before it gets looked at again?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's on our end to establish a protocol as to.
So can that happen?
What happens,
Yeah.
I mean, and some municipalities actually require a maintenance agreement. That states what the applicant's supposed to do. And, if it becomes enforceable, you can, cite them with a violation if they're not.
But can you make a maintenance agreement after the fact on something that's been done 37 years ago?
You guys are doing an approval, you can do whatever you want.
Because I think that's something that seems to be the problem with a lot of these things,
Yeah,
is that
no,
there's, you
No,
require
people-
these things and then they do them and then
No,
it
you
just
build them,
stops.
people
you
get
know?
their approvals, they move on and,
Right,
and I suppose it's a classic example, probably nobody's thought about it for quite a few years.
well, I think about it because I'm dealing with it
5 years ago, so.
constantly.
But not that.
Anyway.
Right, but I'm saying I just see it
Yeah.
in practice, like
Yeah.
where the board does all these things and all the public gets involved and then everything just stops. So if there's some way that we can throw that in there.
So
I
do we
think
want
that-
the requirement that the applicant, execute a stormwater maintenance agreement?
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Who's authoring the agreement?
And generally, it would be to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney and engineer.
And usually, I think there is, some standard language within the stormwater regulations of the town. There's like a standard language in the maintenance.
We've definitely done it for other projects. But I think the issue here is Dan wasn't able to access that location, so we don't know at this point in time what is necessary. So that's kind of the trade-off. If the alternative is you guys clean it up now and we put this over, or we do it subject to.
I don't think, I'm not inferring, we're questioning the subject too. We're happy to align with that methodology.
I mean, generally, the language would be the applicant would submit an agreement to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney and the consulting engineer. That's generally how the language would go. And then, if we have prior agreements that have been done that are comparable to what Dan determines is required in this situation, then we would be happy to share that with you to use as a starting point.
That'd be terrific.
Everyone okay with that?
Sounds very good.
No, is the applicant okay with it? Okay. All right,
Okay, so those were all the conditions for the planning board resolution. And then the architectural review board resolution has very few conditions to really, I think there was a request from this board to make sure that the outstanding septic and stormwater issues were also noted in the ARB approval as well, but I think the details really just need to be in the site.
okay,
So, for the most part, it just refers to the actual drawings themselves from next to three of them. And then it does include the utilities, inspection information.
I just have one question when you brought up the landscape, 'cause I know there's no landscaping here, but there must be, they're putting in grass or something where, after the building's done, right? It's like
It'll return to the lawn state that it's.
I figured you would, because you're gonna want it to look nice, because of the cemetery first, so.
Yeah, and it does have, we have our standard landscaping language
Right.
in there, so.
Right, no, that's fine.
anybody else? have
Yeah,
any?
there was some previous discussion and people raised concerns about the bell. And I know the intent was not for it to be used extensively, but that didn't see language regarding the noise or durations or frequency.
What would you like to,
Would that be site plan?
well, I can do it as
That
site
would be
plan,
site-
More
that would be
site
site
plan,
plan.
because it's
and I'll do it as like a specific condition.
Okay,
So we probably should. What is the condition? We should probably have that conversation. How often,
no bell before. 8 AM?
Yeah, just sort of
8
maybe
AM and.
by the same as our noise ordinance, maybe?
I think
Things
to
about
align it with the
noise.
noise ordinance.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay,
right.
Easy.
So that's like 8 in the morning and then
10.
10, right? Okay,
I have a problem with that either.
Nope.
no, because they said they didn't think they were gonna use it, so.
Okay, so I'll add that too.
Okay. Thank you for that, David.
I have to like that.
Anybody have anything else? Okay. Motion.
I would, since they're two separate resolutions, I would do two separate votes.
Yeah. Um. So we may have a motion on the resolution of the architectural review board. Anybody can second
As amended, no, that's.
as proposed.
The ARB, I don't think they're.
Oh,
I don't think we changed it. So we'll just accept it as it is.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, Donna, have you voted?
Yes.
Yes.
Jim? Okay. Bill?
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's one down. And then the other is the resolution of the planning board approval. Do I have a motion?
As amended.
As
As amended, yeah.
I'll make the motion as amended.
Okay, second,
Second.
Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Yes.
David?
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
Mhm.
With that, do we have we have minutes. Minutes. With that, Merry Christmas, then.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing it with all the windows and everything. It's gonna be beautiful.
Well, come see us soon. We'll have you, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Nine.
Thank you again.
Take care. Minutes. Can we get a motion on the minutes?
I'll make a motion on the minutes.
From November 19th.
Yes. November 19th, you were there, Bill.
It wasn't here, so.
Second.
Okay.
I made a first one, I made a
Okay,
second.
there's a second.
Thank you.
How do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Do we have anything else we need to go over?
Just to let you know that the town board is starting to look at some of the zoning amendments that were contemplated during the comprehensive plan process and afterwards. And so you'll be getting those eventually for your review as a recommendation.
And, so officially like to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and a happy and healthy New Year. You too. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion. You make the
Okay.
motion. I'll make the second.
Okay. How do you vote, David?
Adjourn.
Bill?
Yes.
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 And I vote yes as well.
Bye.
Good night, Margaret.